Welcome to the Panza Panza Forum. In the Yoruba language, the word panza is usually injected into poetry to express an uncomfortable, uncensored, and inconvenient truth. The Panza Panza Forum is candid conversations about the life of African immigrants in America as it relates to their adaptation to their new home. While some may find it easy to integrate and can balance between retaining the original African culture while accepting the culture of their new home, many continue to struggle to find a balance between both worlds.
Hello and welcome to Panza Panza Live. This is a podcast where we discuss the lives of African immigrants and their assimilation into Western society as they raise younger generations in a country that is quite different from their own. We also explore the experiences of children of immigrants as they balance the African and Western cultures. We present to you this informative, interesting, and expansive dialogue about the intricate experiences of African immigrants in America.
Okay, welcome to Panza Panza. I'm your host, Kemi Seriki. Today, I'm having a conversation with Saidu Tejan-Thomas, a fellow podcaster of Resistance, which I listen to regularly. Welcome to Panza Panza, Said, and I'm so grateful and thankful for you coming to this platform to have conversation with me. Share your experience as a son of an African immigrant who migrated with your mom to America during your formative years, right? That you came to this country with to meet your mom. So as I always ask my guests, can you fully introduce yourself? Talk a little bit about your background to our audience as to where you were born and where you spent most of your childhood, as well as adult life.
Yeah. So hello, thank you so much for having me, Ms. Kemi. This is really a privilege and an honor. I'm Saidu Tejan-Thomas Jr., and I am from Freetown, Sierra Leone. I was born there. I was raised there. I lived in Freetown for 8 years before I came to America, and I have, all my formative experiences and memories are from, the streets of Kissy Road, the main street in Freetown, running up and down with my friends, getting into all kinds of trouble. Growing up there with my father and my sister, my aunts, uncles, all these people who lived in the same building together. It was a really good childhood experience. Because, as many of us is the case for like a lot of us who are able to have the privilege to come to America, you have to have some kind of privilege back home that will allow you to buy that passageway to this country. And so, my father was, gainfully employed, and, he came from a family who had property. And so, life wasn't as hard as for me as like it was for many of my friends. But because it's Africa, those ills and those issues are never too far away from your doorstep at any given moment. Yeah. So I went through I was there during the Sierra Leone Civil War, which, we all experience regardless of socioeconomic status or anything like that. And it was a really traumatic experience, all of that. And I think it was after that moment that my parents got really serious about sending me to America, because my mom had already left for America by that point. And so after that experience, they were able to figure stuff out. And, at 8 years old, I was able to come join my mother here in the land of opportunity, and the land of prosperity, and the land of all that is honey and glitter and gold.
Money and free.
Yeah, exactly. So I was excited. I was so happy to be here, to be able to, get on a plane for the first time, watching my father through the window of the plane and seeing him for the last time. Flying to America, very excited to see my mom again and live with her for the first time with my conscious mind since I was a baby. Yeah. And then, you get here, and then it is what it is.
Yeah. So at what age you left, your mom left Sierra Leone to come to America?
I think I was about 3 years old, like 2 or 3 years old when she left Sierra Leone, because she had gotten a visa. And she, you know, her and my dad thought it was the best idea for her to take that opportunity and go and start working, you know, start building that life.
What was the relationship with your dad when your mom left, you know, that he has to take care of you, even though back in Africa, it takes a whole village. Like you said, many family member lives in the building. So what was that relationship like? The bonding that you had with your dad?
Yeah, okay, Miss Kemi. So I have to tell you my so I know we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about my mom, but this is something my family actually gets mad about me about, because I don't talk about my dad very often. And it's because the relationship I had with my father was like amazing. He was an amazing father. He was always there for me, you know. I was like his little boy, and I could tell when I looked into his eyes that he saw himself. And so when I looked and I saw myself in him, and like he spoiled me rotten, gave me everything I wanted. I was like a little brat. Like, people hated me because my father was just so protective of me and so giving and loving of me. Yeah, it was a great relationship. Like, I would go everywhere with him. I was just like, you could tell I was just like the light of his life. And and to enter this world and to not like like when I'm coming into my consciousness, I don't really know my mother. So to enter this world, and like the first few things I'm feeling and going through are feeling precious, feeling like somebody's gift. Yes. It was like such a it was like, I think it was the happiest I've ever been in my life, really. And I think that was primarily and almost entirely, well, no, but primarily for sure because of my father.
And that was very important during your formative year, because you get that confirmation of father's love. That is, you know, from the beginning, and that also built a lot of confidence. And I'm glad you're able to express that here as well. So when you came to America, I believe at the age of 8, what was it like at that age? Coming to America.
All the confidence that you just talked about just slowly got chipped away, just got knocked down when I came to America. Because you go from this society where your dad is basically king of his little village, and he's treating you like the little prince. And then you come here and nobody gives a damn who you are. And eventually, and quite honestly, like, you're actually seen as lesser than other people around you. You're actually seen as maybe backwards or primitive or uneducated or all these things. And not to mention like the shift in socioeconomic status from going from where you were like kind of in a well-off area, you know, Freetown, Kissy Road, like that's, you know, if you're doing well there, you're doing pretty well for yourself. But then like coming to, you know, Alexandria, Virginia, where it's a big city and it's a nice city, but like we just weren't in the best situation. My mom was just, you know, working really hard to get by. She didn't really have her own place yet. She was renting a place with a friend of hers who was like family to us, but that situation wasn't the best. And school, getting acclimated to like the way kids are in this society, I think was like a little different for me too, like a just huge culture shock of like things like going from football to soccer or like like American football and basketball, just like funny little things like that. But also like things like just not knowing like how to be in this new place with this accent, with this tongue, with this shade of skin. Just like everything just felt very, very much like a culture shock. And honestly, like it was just like a slow chipping down and chipping away at the confidence that I felt like I had gained. My father had like breathed into me when I first when I was back home overall.
Yeah, that is what many immigrants also, even maybe your mom at that time, may also be going through at the same time.
But like I think this has been covered before, but like I just couldn't, I couldn't see that. Like that just was not like, because so to me, my mom in this scenario, my mom is like, if back home in Sierra Leone, when I entered the world and in my formative years, my father ushered me into this community and into this space as a really like royal being, as like a really like great little kid, like as a really like somebody who has a lot, who deserves value and deserves respect and all these things, because he had the capacity and the means and the society to do that. My mom didn't have any of that, but I couldn't see that. All I could see was just like, why isn't she doing some of the same things? Why isn't she capable even of doing some of the same things that my dad did? When
you wouldn't understand. You wouldn't understand that. And like I said, many immigrants' children experience that. They question their parents. We've seen a lot of all that as well. So
No, I was just gonna say, and I think maybe even to a certain extent to protect me, she didn't tell me. Like she didn't tell me exactly what was going on with her. Like sometimes she would, the thing sometimes that African parents do, where they'll just be like, you don't understand, or like they'll just sigh really heavily, and just like, but they won't tell you exactly sometimes, like to the extent to what's going on and how it could be very similar to what you're experiencing. Because I think like sometimes she would talk about it in like these ways that I just couldn't understand, talk about it in like, in terms of work, right? She would talk about it in like, I'm like busting my behind to do all these kind of really hard manual labor work jobs, and you're just going outside and playing. Like these are not two different things. But sometimes I wonder if like she had told me, whatever you're feeling in school, or feeling like you don't fit in, or feeling like you have to prove yourself, or feeling like you're worth more than what people are telling you you're worth here, I'm feeling that too. Like if I feel like if maybe she had like made that comparison with me, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if it would have changed anything, but maybe it would have given me just a little bit better understanding.
And you're so right. Your mom wasn't the only one. I'm the same thing too. My children, they older now, and they talking. And they said, you don't even express your feelings. We don't even know whether, apart from you scolding us, whether something is actually bothering you. And that is also cultural, because we might think that as a parent, you wouldn't understand. One focus is taking care of you, making sure that you're safe and provide every necessary things, for you. And we might get on the phone and talk to our friends or talk to other family members about the innermost struggle that we're going through. But we don't like to burden the children. I remember 2 weeks ago, I was talking to a friend who is actually retired now. And she was talking about the discrimination that she was going through at work. Our children too are all grown up now. She's a grandmother. And she told me at that time, when she would come home and thinking about all the biases that she was experiencing at work, the mistreatment, she would cry on her way home. But before she gets home, she wipes her tears and just walk into the house as if nothing happened, and get the kids to do their homework. Did you eat your food? Did you do this? Did you do that? And then the next day. But she never was able to express, because she doesn't want to burden the children.
Right.
Because children are so good in soaking in the emotional struggle of the parents if they actually show it. So it might come in another way of maybe anger.
I see. But okay, so because my question was going to be, is that really true? Is it really true that if you are honest with your children about how you're actually feeling, I mean, it depends on how young the child is, I imagine, but like at a certain point, if you start like being a little just more honest with them about what you're going through, like, is it really true that it will affect them negatively, right? Because what we do know for a fact is that when you don't talk to them, that produces like negative effects, like, because your childhood mind is so, so young that you're just left to, and your imagination is so wild that you're just left to imagine other things when you don't know the truth. So we know that for a fact, but do we know that, that if we were able to like actually have these honest conversations with our children, like would that actually affect them just as bad?
We will, as a parent, as an African parent, for me, that's what I felt. And I've spoken to many who also feel, and also cultural upbringing also have an impact on it.
Right.
Because culturally, when we're back home, when we're going through something, we talk to our age mates.
Mm-hmm.
We talk to our friends, our family, elders of the family who could actually give you the wisdom of how to maneuver through things.
Right.
So maybe you could even remember when you were with your mom, maybe when she gets on the phone talking to maybe a family member back home, the way she will express an innermost feelings will be different from the way she will express it to you.
Yes,
so
facts.
She will feel like, those are the people that may understand what she's going through. And she wouldn't, she feels like, younger children wouldn't understand, because culturally it's all about parents-child relationship. Is when you come across many African children here, they will tell you the parents' relationship is about giving direction.
There's a severe lack of respect and understanding for what the child is going through too, is how I feel about it. It's just kind of, because that's built in, that's like, there's like a good thing about it, which is just like, we are all like in Africa, it's like we have this hierarchy of age. The older you are, the more venerated, the more respected you are, the more, people can bring things to you, talk to you, and the more things that you're privileged to, right? And the younger that you are, the less respect you have, the more that people will just sort of like make decisions for you, direct you, do whatever it is that, they really want to do, because you just don't have any agency.
Well, I to me, if you could go deep culturally, is actually, in my culture, they said, I want to say it in Yoruba. That means, as an elderly person, as a child, you might not be able to reach a fruit. And as a child, as an adult, your hand might not be able to dig inside a small hole that you need a child's hand to go inside a small calabash with a small hole to take something out of it. So it's to say we all connected with each other. Of course, sometimes, sometimes because we're here, the challenges that we go through here is foreign to us. Because like I said, there's no extended family. There's no uncle, aunt. You can't even talk to your next door neighbor. Because, that isolation is what many parents are trying to navigate. And that's why this conversation is very important. They're trying to navigate, working, providing for the family, making sure everything is in order. And while they are going through a lot of emotional issue, as well as mental health issue as well. Because they are in an environment that is not connected to what they know.
Right.
What they are familiar with.
Right.
So that is very, very challenging.
Yeah, you don't have the tools that you need to do the thing that you're used to doing in a different environment.
In a different environment. Yeah. Because if it's back home, maybe if you're acting up in school, she would just tell the teachers to take care of it, because she trusts African, teachers back home that, they will do the right thing, or the elders of the community would be there.
Yeah. I actually experienced something when I was back home in December. So my sister has gone to this my older sister, she's like 38, but she went to this all-girls school. The school is like right up the street. It's like not even a block away from her house. And that's the school that a lot of young girls go to. But she's like older now. So we're standing outside and, it's like 3 o'clock and school is over and all the girls are coming down the street. And she pulls one of the girls out of the crowd. She doesn't know this girl at all, but she pulls the girl out of the crowd and she says something to her, and she fixes her thing. And you can tell she's like scolding her about something, telling her, you know, fix this, or like, don't do this, or like, why is your thing like this? And then she like just like ushers the girl back into the crowd to go where she's going. And I asked her, I said, do you know that girl? She said, no. She said, I don't know that girl. But she goes to the school that I went to. So the girl understood that that's what my sister was doing. And my sister understood. It was like a social contract between the two people.
So many things that, imagine if that girl was doing something like that in the United States here, where they have to call the mother. This girl's mother that you were talking about didn't know anything. The issue is already fixed by another elders of the community. The same thing, let's assume that child is hungry. Let's assume, you know, we're in the neighborhood and, you know, I cook and I know your mom hasn't come home. And I said, Said, you haven't eaten anything. Oh, my mom hasn't come home yet. Okay, come here and eat your dinner. Even though we are not related. But it's a community, you know, connection that we have back home that is quite different from here.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so that's what it is that I'm trying to bring out. You know, it's a completely different environment. So I would say I learned about Said's story in March of 2020 while I was listening to a podcast called Snap Judgment. The story was called Borders Between Us. And after your mother passed away, she joined the ancestors. You talk about traveling across the world, visiting Sierra Leone, and then going to Europe to visit your aunt as well, right? So, and through the dialogue with your aunt, you really get to know and understand who your mother was before she migrated to United States, right? Our personalities, our likes and dislikes. And as a poet, which I know, I've been listening to your poem too. As a poet, you share stories through verses and rhymes. And why did you choose to tell the story through podcasts at that time?
Yeah, so at the time I was just getting into podcasting. I'd been in podcasting for I think 2.5 years. And I'd been helping produce a bunch of other people's stories. And but I knew that there were stories that I wanted to produce about my own life that were always just nagging at me, that I wanted to like do in this medium, because I had been telling my own stories through poetry and I've been performing poetry for years before that. But in this new medium, I wanted to find a way to sort of marry the two things that I had been, learning, the two crafts, the poetry, the stage performance aspect of it, but also the production of like a highly produced podcast, sort of like interview style segment of the show, and also like the narration. I just wanted to try to do something of my own in this medium that felt like me, that felt true to me and my story. And this story was one that had been sitting very heavily on me, because in a year, I think like maybe 6 months before I did it, or a year, I had just gone back to Sierra Leone for the first time in like 12 or so years. It was a big trip for me, because the last time I was there was when my father died, to bury my father when I was about 14. Wow. So this second trip was like a big trip for me, because I was like, because since my father died, my mother had also died around when I was 17. So going back felt like, going back was going to be the first time that I was going to see my mother's grave, because she had gone back home and, gotten buried there, but I wasn't there for any of that. And when I saw it, it was just such a transformative experience. And I had carried so much. I didn't realize how much I had carried with me, about her relationship and about our relationship, until I, entered in that cemetery that day. So I knew I had a lot to say, and I knew I had a lot to get off my chest. And, part of it, in the beginning, I didn't even know it was about my mother. I thought the story was about, and it was in some sense, but I thought the story was bigger. I thought it was about my transformation since I've been gone from home, all these people I've seen who've grown up and turned into, their own people, how they remember me, the difference between how they remember me and who I am now. I was trying to do so much in this one story. But that just kept coming back to that experience I had at the cemetery and how potent and how like transformational it was for me, or just like shook me, that I felt like I need to focus in on that and really explore that relationship that I felt was unresolved. I needed to answer some questions about why I broke down that way. So podcasting seemed like the best medium to do that, because I would have ample amount of space. I mean, I was just learning this craft. I think I was getting good at it. I can, interview somebody, and I can just put together a thing that, just has a mix of poetry, a mix of narration, a mix of interview, and scene tape from my time in Sierra Leone and that trip that I took back, and just put it together in a way that I felt like gave me some kind of peace. And I think it definitely did. I think it definitely like resolved something for me.
Yes. I really appreciate that, because like I said to you before, when I listened to that story that night, I had to sit down there and I was just thinking about it. And I said, many immigrant parents will be able to relate to this. And I know many immigrant children will also be able to relate to this, because it's very, very powerful. It's about relationship between a parent and a child. And even, mind you, even people back home, sometimes you have some family children who may not get along with their parents, maybe their father, for one reason or the other. And then when they pass on, then you start recollecting back, thinking back, the most important part of, your relationship with them, the most point that you could connect, with your parents, you tend to remember all those things, and that was very powerful for me, because that night I couldn't sleep. I said, no, I have to get in touch with young man. I have to get in touch with him. And that was really, really great story. And the way you actually put it together was very powerful. I really want to commend you for that. So what was the aha moment during this discovery of learning about your mother from your aunt? How would you relate to what you uncover about yourself and what you learn about yourself through this, through the story of your mom from your aunt?
Yeah, I mean, I think like, I think kind of the biggest takeaway was just that there's a difference. I think like there was two things happening with me. One of them was that like, because I've always wanted to be a good son, I never wanted to critique my mother in an honest way. I never wanted to like assess in a really honest way what our relationship was like, because I didn't ever want to make it seem like she was a bad mother. Because she was a great mother. She did everything in her power possible to make sure that I had a good life and turn out the way I did today. And she did an awesome job. She did an awesome job.
Yes.
But I couldn't escape the fact that there was things about our relationship that I just never understood. I just never understood why she did some of the things she did, some of the way she went about it. Like I always kind of wish she had just gone about it a different way, like a more straightforward way. But she was always thinking ahead, always thinking about the future. And so she would be thinking like 5 steps ahead. And I'm just like, can we just be in the present? Can you just parent me in the present and like see what I need now and give me what I need now in this moment? Or at least like half and half. but that wasn't her parenting style. She always had this sixth sense that like there was going to be more coming down the line, and she was right. was 100% right. I mean, my father died when I was 14, and she died 3 years later. Like, it's almost like she knew that she was gonna have to leave me here to fend for myself. And so I wanted to, like, but because I couldn't see really that foresight that she had, in this story, I think, like, what I realized was, like, I wasn't being gracious enough to her, to that sense that she was operating on. I wasn't being gracious enough to, like, to the seismic changes that she was trying to prepare me for, and the just the unknown of the future that I was heading into. I wasn't really, like, being gracious enough about that. And that's one of the revelations I had. It was just like, she was really doing, is like the ship was rocking and she could feel it, but I couldn't. And she knew that that things were about to go down, and she needed to strap me up with all the life vests and put me in the chair and make sure that I got on the ship out of the Titanic. Like, that's kind of one of the revelations I had. Another revelation I had was just, like, how much of herself she had to sort of store away and pack away and put away in order to do that, in order to prepare me, in order to, like, set me up for the future. So I never really had access to who she was. I never really had access to know who she was as a person, because she was so much more concerned with being a mother. And so, yeah, that was a huge aha. Those were huge aha moments for me, knowing that her sense of duty and her sense of honor were so great that she put herself before me, but she did it in a way that she never even really showed that that's what she was actually doing. She only talked about the material sacrifices she was making. She only talked about the, I'm going to work and I'm working overtime. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm putting my body on the line for you. Basically, I'm doing work that I don't want to be doing. She only talked about those material sacrifices, but she never talked about the emotional sacrifices. She never talked about the spiritual sacrifices that she was having to make, and that she had to make in order to, like, prepare me for, today.
Yes, and she did a great job, because both of your mom and your dad did a good job, because your dad gave you that foundation while you were in Sierra Leone. And when you came in here, even though she was tough, regarding some of the stuff that she may be telling you, that at that time, because of your age, you just feel like, this is too much, you're not really giving me what I really want. And many teenagers are like that. Many of your age group are like that, especially when you when you are in a place whereby the value system that you have is within your household. I always tell people, you could raise as an African parents, your value is within your household. Your next door neighbor have another different values. The next door neighbor have another different value. So you have to battle with all those multiple, value system, which a lot of time is more powerful than yours. And imagine back home, whereby you don't have to do that, because almost everybody share the same kind of belief.
Same system, yeah.
The same system. So that is part of what I think is what, to me is much more like an anxiety, because like I tell you, I have my children, my son too, whereby, it's much more like, don't do this, don't do that, back and forth with each other. Until, even though, he's grown now, he's living on his own, and it feels like, oh my God, you were so tough on me, you never allow me to do A, B, C, and D. My friends are hanging out, One day I had to ask him, I said, what's your friend's mother's name? He told me what's her name. I said, what's my name? I said, you see, we're different. Okay, so that is their value within their house. This is my value within my house, because if anything happens, this is what is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because as an African, it's a privilege to be American citizen, whereby you cannot be deported anywhere. And as an African, any mistake, any misdeed, any misunderstanding could lead to so many other issues. So that parents are not ready for. So because a parent could be deported, a child could be deported. And it takes another starting all over again to be able to recover. So that's what you may be able to see in so many anxiety that you might see in many African parents. And they might not actually tell you because they don't want to put another anxiety on you as a child.
Yeah.
They just maybe want you to be careful, which what I tell my children, as well as, many of youth of African immigrant youth that I've come across. And I'm not going to say all African parents are perfect. Each one of us have our own, issue that we also deal with as well. Yeah,
yeah. How old are your kids?
My daughter is 23. My son is 26.
Okay.
And what actually, for me, I always tell people, I came here in 1982. Many African parents, Africans who come in here, when I came here, let me start all over. When I came here, I didn't have my children until over 10 years later.
Wow.
That gives me much more leeway to be able to maneuver through the system, to navigate, to find myself in a different environment.
Right.
What I like, what I don't like, But many Africans who come in here, many may come in here within 2 years, they already have a child. Or they actually coming in with their children in a new environment that they have to navigate through with that child. So it may be very challenging for them because they're still trying to find things out.
Yeah, they're still trying to figure it out.
They're still trying to figure things out.
Yeah. I think that was definitely the case for sure with my mom, because I don't quite remember exactly how long she was in America. But I know that at the point that I came in, she wasn't standing on her own 2 feet the way she wanted to just yet. I remember when she was finally able to get a condo, her first place that was her own place. And she was very excited, like, this is like a big deal. She's finally able to do this thing. We've been, at this point, I'm like 11 years old. And she comes to me and she says, I got the keys, we're gonna move. And like, she wants to see some kind of excitement from me. So I don't say anything, because at that point because we were gonna move cities. So the main thing I was worried about is I have to go start all over in a new school. Like, do you know how long it took me to get used to these children? And like, this is where I came in when I immigrated here. Like, this is like how I've like developed the whole personality. Like, these people finally are starting to accept me in some way. And now you're telling me I have to go to this other place and like do it all over again. I was so mad. But on her trajectory of being an immigrant, this was like a big deal. Like, this was an accomplishment.
Yeah.
This was an accomplishment for our family unit to have our own place, like a place that she can like, develop wealth in. And like,
you see, I the conflict.
Yeah, exactly. We were just at 2 different points in our trajectories. And she, at one point when we finally moved in, she just sat me down and she was like, she told me that. She was just like, I can't believe you didn't say anything. Like, you haven't expressed any kind of excitement, any kind of congratulations, any kind of moral support about how big of a deal this was. And I think she was just disappointed in me, but she didn't know that I was disappointed. Like, I was disappointed in her for not understanding me. Like,
that's what it is. And that's where the communication comes in.
Yeah.
Which many times we don't ask our children, why do you didn't say anything? And you being that, that communication wasn't taking place initially. That, oh, mom, yeah, I mean, we could have moved. I like that we're moving, but I have to start all over again in a new school. I have to form a new friendship. This is what may be going on. And she might feel like, we need to move to this better environment. Maybe she felt like that area is negative influence there.
She was right. she was 100% right, because the situation that I was comfortable in that place was not good. I was definitely headed down the wrong path.
You see?
I was not going down the right path. I felt good because, all the wrong things I was doing was, it was making me more popular with the people that I was doing it with. It felt good to me, but to her, even though she wasn't really seeing it, I think she maybe knew that she needed to get out of that area. And like, it was that really changed my life. Like, I think my life could have been totally different if we stayed in that place that we were. But yeah, that move was a very crucial move.
It was, and like I said before, looking at that environment where you guys were before, she might feel like, this is not the right place for my child, because I have no control of other people's value system. I need to move to another area whereby I believe, even though there's no guarantee that, anywhere you go in America, you always find some, children within the area where they had negative influence and they're doing some other things that they shouldn't be doing. But at least, maybe this area is much more promising for my son. Because left to her, she will have not said that, you know what, we could stay here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could just stay here. I have nothing to worry about. It's not as if I have any child who is in school environment. I could just stay here and then go about with my business. I don't need to move anywhere. Just save the money and all that stuff. And another thing I want you to look, I would love for you to look at. Back in Sierra Leone, your mother's status and your dad was on a, middle class, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe even higher than that. But coming here and, coming here to do this low paying job where just anybody would talk to you anyhow. And you can't say anything back because you have to think about the rent you have to pay. You have to think about every other responsibility you have to do. If it's back home that somebody said that, mistreat you at a job, you could just say, take your job. I have other family who could support me for some time. Until when I'm able to find another job. But in this country, it's completely different.
Completely different. Yeah, it's a shot to the ego. As well, because you just, and your self-worth, because it's like one of the weird privileges of immigrating is that you really get to experience two different ways of walking through this world. From being like, middle or near the top of your society, and then going for like almost the bottom, almost going to the bottom. And like, that is like that's a switch that makes anybody that will drive anybody crazy. It will drive anybody crazy, because it's just like not, and it's also just not what you expect. Based off of everything that you've heard about America. It's, you think you come here and everything is great. And you'll get your education and you'll go to university and you'll get the good job and that's it. But the truth is, you very likely will become fodder for the machine. Like, you will become just another foot soldier that they just throw at all the jobs and all the issues that they don't want to confront themselves. And then you get treated like nothing. You get treated like nothing. And that can be a huge moral disappointment for sure.
It is, and apart from, we're talking about institutionalized racism and all this other stuff that goes on in this country. And then you have to also, as an immigrant, you are not just facing institution of racism, you're also facing other people who look down at you as an African, that, you are not civilized. You come from all this, the nation whereby, people are not civilized, or they discriminate against you and look at you as if you don't even belong in the first place. Okay,
Yeah.
so that leads me to another question I want to ask you. Can you share your experience, give some insight of how you dealt with being the first generation immigrant child as it relates to your identity, racism, and navigating through the diverse space in American society?
Yeah. I mean, it was that's a good question. I think it was an evolution, a constant evolution of my identity since I came here. You know, you first come here and like, I think one of the things I always kept in my mind was I'm African, I'm Sierra Leonean, and I'm here to do a job. I'm here to get my education, do well, and like and be able to help my family. Be able to help my family here and my family back home, because I know as bad as things are here,
Yeah.
they're nowhere as near as bad as what a lot of my family is, you know, going through back home. So like I have that laser focus. But then you start experiencing all this like social stuff. Just like you come here, it's not like you don't expect to see Black people. You see Black Americans, and I think like initially like I gravitated towards them because, you know, we're both Black. But you very quickly realize that you're not the same kind of Black. That there's like a difference in culture, there's a difference in history, there's a difference in similarities. Yes. And like and at that age, you know, kids are kids, so they're going to pick out on all the differences and all the similarities and other you and make you feel like you are less than. Yes. Because of your differences. And it just so happens, I think that, you know, my differences in that scenario was that I was African and they were Black American. And that meant that I was less civilized and I was made fun of in all these kind of ways. And they were, you know, cool, essentially. And they were, you know, they were just Black Americans, and that was like a better thing to be. So I think for the longest time, I think I wanted like, I would like for the longest time as a young child, I wanted the approval of the Black Americans that I was going to school with, because like I wanted to fit in that way. But I think like I was equating acceptance into Black American culture with like bad things, like because they didn't understand me as much as I didn't understand them. I thought like being accepted into Black American culture means like, you know, acting up in class, or like, you know, trying to get into fights with people, or like making fun of people and all these other things. But I think like I didn't do a good job at that. So I was never like, I never felt fully accepted by Black Americans for like a very, very long time growing up. And so that like built up like this like sense of resentment in me, because I was just like, oh, like if you guys don't accept me just as I am, and also I'm trying all these things and it's not working, then it must mean that like, then the only thing that I can hold on to is my status back home. And my status back home was like, I'm a really, you know, I'm a really valuable, really like well-respected person. So like, I'm better than you. Like if you won't accept me, then screw it. Then I don't want any part of it. Then I must just be better than you because I'm African. Because I'm not gonna, you know, take the jokes about me being less than you. I'm gonna turn that into something else and say that I'm better than you. Yes. And I think that like that was that created just like a lot of resentment and a lot of like hurt in me. And it wasn't until I got like to high school, that I met this guy. He was a Caribbean immigrant. Okay. And I was in a really heated argument with him and some of my other African friends, because by the time I got to high school, I was just hanging out with other Africans, because we all had that same experience, and we were all like, okay, let's just stick together. Yes. So we were in a really heated argument, and I said something like to the effect of, you know, I'm not Black. I'm not a Black American. I'm African, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's like who I am. And that makes me better because I haven't been through all the like same stuff that y'all have been through. I'm like just naming I'm just speaking from a place of hurt, basically, right? And so he looked at me and he was like, do you think the cops know that when they see you on the street? like when you go, do you think America cares that you are not Black, that you're not Black American, that no one cares. Like, this is like, you, when they're looking for who did it, you still fit the profile.
Yes.
When you're going for a job interview and, you know, you're still like, your name on paper still looks like a funky arrangement of letters. Like, you still look in every single way, in the way the system looks at you, you still look like just another Black person. So like, it makes no sense for you to be like trying to parse out like, or think that you're better than somebody if you're experiencing the same ills that those people are experiencing too. And I think that's when the idea started germinating in my mind. It was, oh, that was actually a pretty good point. But it wasn't until I got to college and really started to learn about systemic oppression and racism and how it moves and how global it is and how our struggles are interconnected. The struggles of me being an African immigrant, the struggles of Black Americans are all interconnected.
It is.
That's when I started to really have this major awakening in my freshman year of college of oh, like all these things that I thought I was doing all this time to separate myself or differentiate myself were all just defense mechanisms. And they were all besides the point. They were all besides the point of how we are all part of the diaspora. And we may have different experiences, but like white supremacy has like done such a good job of what it does.
All over the world.
Right, but we look at each other, and what we see is not similarity, but what we see are differences. What we see are the things that like that tear us apart, not the things that bring us together. And so that began the very you know, really transformative process of me realizing kind of just where I stood and my kinship, I think, to, you know, Black people all around the world, including Black Americans here.
Yeah, and it's so important what you said, because in many instances, I've come across African Americans who you could talk about colonization. They feel like, oh, but you are in your country. You could easily fight off colonization. You could easily fight off white supremacists and all that stuff. That's your country. They didn't occupy it, but you're not understanding that the geography of Africa in itself was implanted, it was divided, you know, during the Berlin Conference into different regions. And that's why you have Africans who speak English, who speak French. Like I always tell people, I said there are more French speaking people in Africa than the whole Europe in itself. You know, so we have to actually look at that. And for people of African descent that we're in the same struggle, whether, you know, ancestors who were brought here during the time of slavery, that they were enslaved in Africa, or those who were colonized in different parts of the continent, we're all struggling with the same, you know, oppressor. You know,
and vice versa. I think like when, and this is actually good that we're talking about it, because I think like, I wasn't gaining all that resentment towards Black Americans just from my small mind of like being in elementary school. Because I will have to say, like, I think I was also getting that from some of the other adults in the immigrant African community who look at Black Americans and say to themselves, you are in America. You have access to everything. You can go get a passport. You can go to, you know, go to university, go get a job. Like, you can do anything. Like, why do you choose to be oppressed? Or like, why do you choose to be poor? Or why do you choose to not be in a position of higher social status? Like, why are you choosing that? Because I think coming over here, and this is how the struggles are interconnected. Like, in one part of it, you're leaving your country to come here because your country doesn't have the resources to give you to live the life that you want to live there for the most part. And that's due to all kinds of racist, colonial, like actions and stuff. Exactly. That's due to all this racism. And then you're coming here, but you don't see that on the other side, that if you may see Black Americans who, you know, aren't as successful or whatever as you may want them to be, all of that is due from the same kind of racist, like, policies, racist laws, all these things that have like conditions that are created to keep Black people down. But the system of white supremacy is such that it's so genius that two people can look at each other and again point out the differences, but not the similarities, not the similarities and struggles, but just like, you're not doing good with what you have. You have your own country, and you're not good with doing what you have. You're in America. Rather than like, why are we even here? Like, why are we even struggling? Like, why are we even, why are we not even connecting on the same kind of struggles that we have?
And you know, the miseducation is huge, and it comes with the influence of the media. You know, what they portray about each other.
Exactly.
Each part coming from Africa or African America is all constantly negative. You know, so that is part of, you know, African Americans don't want to relate to the Africans because they are trying to struggle to lift themselves up from, you know, primitive, you know, being seen as being primitive, you know. So, and they find you that you come from the continent that, oh no, we don't want to associate with this. And Africans in the sense also see the TV whereby, oh, the only person you see that they're showing on TV committing crime are the Black people or the Latino, you know, the brown people. Those are the ones who have the problem. So it's all this, you know, misunderstanding that they continue to create, but we have to educate ourselves. Yeah. And in any group, any, you know, in a society, whether even in Liberia or Sierra Leone or Nigeria, you know, Nigeria has over 250 ethnic groups. Okay, there's certain, you know, things that we believe, you know, biases towards each other. You understand what I'm saying? I might look at somebody who have some, you know, biases or some beliefs that, you know, people just have against one another. Igbos might look at the Yorubas and say, oh, Yoruba people are like this. Your Hausa people are like that. But when your biases have something to do with progress of other people, that's where the problem comes in. You understand what I'm saying? When your biases actually prevent, you know, maybe certain group of people, their children to, you know, advocate for them in school, or for them to have a better position in a job where they are more qualified for, but because they are from this group, I'm not going to give them that opportunity. That's where the problem comes in.
Yeah, certainly. And I think it's in the context of this conversation, I think it's really important that African parents do a better job of educating themselves in this matter as well, and instilling that in their kids, because we, you know, I think it's a little bit different now with like the way the culture has shifted. Afro beats, African music is a lot more popular now. I think kids are having a slightly easier time going to school and stuff like that. But I think like for kids who aren't having that, you know, easy of a time with, you know, relating to Black Americans, I think like we can very easily like just take on this holier than thou mentality as a way to sort of like, you know, fight back or push back against like the not being accepted. And I think that mentality is not just one that we come up with ourselves, but it's one that we hear from parents. It's one that we hear from aunts. It's one that we hear from uncles, because of everything that you named, because of the way that the media is biased against, you know, African Americans and them not really knowing the truth of it. But I think there's a big responsibility for African parents to be educated in this area, to be able to tell their kids the truth about our, you know, our diasporic like brothers and sisters, to be able to connect those struggles between what we experience back home and what they're experiencing here, so that, you know, if a kid is making fun of you for something, it's not, you know, it's not then used as a reason for you to think that you're better than them because you're African. It's just, you know, it's just kids being kids. And yeah, I just think it's like really important, because like we learn a lot from you all. We learn a lot from the you know, our parents, and we take that with us.
Yeah, and you know, like I said, the dialogue has to take place, and I wish, you know, there are more dialogues within African immigrants people of African in the diaspora in itself that we're in this United States of America, to actually pull together and see how we can work together, because that's very important. Parents who anything that could happen to them or within their household could derail the whole family.
The entire lineage, yeah.
Yes, if a child, maybe, that child got arrested and then he leads to, okay, do you have any papers? Where's your immigration stuff? And one thing I want you to realize when it comes to being arrested, what does it mean to Africans if their child get arrested?
It means a lot.
For getting into trouble. They might not even understand, how do I get a lawyer? What being arrested means to me. Because you bring the way you think about getting involved in criminal justice back home. You have to really do something that is major. Maybe you killed somebody or you did armed robbery. Not because you fought, not because two children are fighting, that, parents could call each other and resolve that issue right there.
Right.
And say, okay, Tim and Said got into a fight. Okay, let's see whether we can plan a play date and resolve this.
Right.
But it's not like that. The next thing is to call the police. So who is going to be at loss? Both of them, a two group of kids, both of them will be but who may jeopardize their status in America? Maybe that is more of the reason why an African parent may want their children, listen, like you said, we don't explain things fully to let you see why we're making certain decisions.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's okay for African parents to bash African American or people of other African descent, because not all African Americans are, criminals. There's so many African Americans, they're thriving in this country, that they are head of a corporation, that they're doing very well. Their children are doing very well. But because of the picture that they showed on the TV, which is propaganda picture all the time of Black and brown people getting in trouble, not doing the right thing, and all that stuff, So that education has to take place.
Yeah. And I think I think the stakes of I think both sides have something at stake, right? Because on our side is deportation, which can, ruin the entire, family future, right? And I think on the other side, if we're talking about trouble, if we're talking about this framework of if the two sides could, get into a fight or whatever, right? There's just prison on the other side. And that has just as devastating effects on a person and has devastating effects on a family as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it becomes an issue about just again, education on both sides about where people are coming from, but also about being able to talk to each other, about having, if we were able to have continuous dialogue with each other, see where each other were coming from, what could we do with that power, right? What could we do with the power of continental Americans here, Black Americans here, and diasporic Africans who come here after the fact? What could we do if we actually were able to collectivize?
To work together, and
exactly.
And that's very important. I mean, I've seen people even after they got arrested here, then after doing their time, maybe 20 years, in prison, and then they handed them over to immigration. Immigration then take over. Then they will do another time with the immigration before they, deport them back to their respective countries. And it's not only among Africans, even when you talk about within the Latin American community too, especially during Obama term as a president, they call him the deporter in chief. I've seen many, even, people who have done their time, whether you're talking about the Latin Americans who've done their time, they've spent time in prison. and then, and they finish, they working, become a productive citizen of the society. And then they said, oh, yeah, you've had a criminal record before, deported that then back to maybe Dominican Republic, some other places, Mexico.
Yeah.
So it's all those things that it is so fearful.
It's fear, yeah. It's fear on all sides. All sides is like ruled by fear of not wanting to be, locked up or deported or done away with.
Yeah.
Fear of not wanting to be respected, not wanting to be disrespected, not wanting to be undervalued. Fear is like ruling a lot of our decision making. And fear is ruling a lot of our miscommunication and our lack of communication with each other.
Yeah, that's true. So I want to bring you back to, experience, this later on, because many African children, all I see is complain. African parents are African parents are this. So what would you say is the memorable experience you later realize being raised in an immigrant home?
Memorable experiences being raised in an immigrant home. Man, my time of being raised in an immigrant home, I think, is defined by not having much freedom. I couldn't do anything.
No, I'm talking about positive.
Oh, positive.
You see now? You see where your mind...
I have a lot of negative.
No, because I'm talking about positive now.
Okay, all right, I can do positive. Positive, lots of positives. The food, number one. Having somebody who knows how to cook your food the way it's supposed to be cooked. I mean, when I went back home to Sierra Leone recently in December, like that was my favorite. That was the most memorable part of being back home, having my sister there who can cook. Like, I love her cooking. Like, it was just the best food that I feel like I've ever tasted.
It reminds you of your mom.
It reminds me of my mom, yeah. And being raised in an immigrant home, like the food was number one. The I don't know, just like the ability sometimes of your mom or whoever to just be intuitive sometimes and just know what you need. Like if it's like if you're acting up or whatever, sometimes you can count on them. You can definitely count on them to say what needs to be said, right? Like the truth, the cold hard truth. The funny, they're like my aunties, they're so fun. They're all so funny because they just say what's on their mind all the time. Yep. They don't have any misgivings about saying what's on their mind. They have all these they have like 1,000 nicknames from me, Baba Tunde, Papa, all these like funny ways of them relating to me is always great.
So they call you Baba Tunde?
Yeah.
You know what it means?
No, I actually don't know. What does it mean? I think I looked it up a while ago.
It's the Yoruba word that says father came back, that you are the image of maybe their dad or somebody. You remind them of one of their ancestors who came back.
Well, see,
as you.
That makes sense. That, and as well, I have my father's name because I'm a junior.
Yes.
But yeah, so yes, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it's all these things, I think, were just the culture, having a sense of culture in a place too where you're just like, where there's so much different cultures, so many other cultures, and sometimes you want to participate in those cultures and you want to like be a part of it, but like to have your own and to know that you can come home and experience that whenever you want. I think those were like some really good moments. I feel like there's a bunch of others I just can't even really think of right now. But
so would you say you finally at peace after the journey of exploring the past? You could say you moved from sacrifice to relationship and to forgiveness.
Yeah, I would say so. With in regards to my relationship with my mother. And I know because when I went back in December, I went back to the cemetery and I didn't break down this time. I just talked to her. I just kind of gave her updates on what was going on with my life. I said hi. I just felt just fine. Like I went back I went like 3 times.
Wow.
And it was just not as heavy of an experience. It just felt like I was just visiting, you know, where she was buried. And it was fine. So I would say definitely that I'm at peace.
Yeah, and I know she's looking down, both of your parents, and they are so proud of you. I know that, and I know many family members must have told you the same thing, because you're doing very well, and it's something that their spirit, will be so proud of and say, yes, we continue to shine on you. So you started living on your own since you were 17 years old?
No. So because I've always been surrounded by so many like people in my village of like aunties and uncles and stuff. So when my mother died when I was 17, her youngest sister, who was actually with me back when I was in Sierra Leone, and my mother was there as well. She like helped raise me when I was very, very young. She had come to America. Oh, wow. And my mother's nephew, who I call my uncle, he's actually my cousin. He was also in America. And so they decided to come together and like just move in with me and my sister. And at least they stayed there with me until they just moved in with their family. And like they stayed there with me until I graduated high school, because they just wanted to give me stability. Yes. Because this really seismic thing had happened. So after I graduated high school, then they moved somewhere else, and they took my sister with them. And, she, started growing up with them, and now she's in college. So basically they just came in and did what needed to be done.
And that's what, even though it's small number, you understand me? That's what it is to be family, village. That's very powerful. And I'm so happy that they took over. So you went away to college, you live on campus?
Yeah, I lived on campus.
Oh, okay, so while you are in campus, do you intermingle? Because in high school, you were only, intermingling among African students. So in college, did you change your tune? Did you intermingle?
Yeah, I had to, because me and all my friends from high school went to different schools. We all went to different schools, so I had to make new friends. And I'm pretty good at making friends. I think I was just like, I was comfortable in high school. In college, I just, made friends with people I was going to classes with. I started, I made friends with because I lived on campus. So we had a resident assistant, the person who like in the dorms, who basically like is in charge of your hall, and like they're like the older person. So I made friends with that guy, and he's now one of my really good friends, like a brother to me. And he's the person who introduced me to poetry, to writing my own poetry. Because I knew I was reading poetry, but he's the one who like pushed me to write. And it's the relationship I formed with him and others is what, got me to start like, doing different poetry events, like just like really coming into my own as a writer, meeting new people and branching out in that way. So it was fruitful.
That's really good. And I know you were present during one of our community dialogue on African grandparents and their children. What are your thoughts about the conversation now? What would you say you can relate to the experiences of these young men and women who presented on that event?
Yeah, no, the conversation was really interesting. It was, I think the best thing for me to hear was how people from different parts of Africa were all seemingly echoing the same things. Like we're all kind of saying the same. They had some of the very similar experiences about coming to America, about like not feeling heard by their parents, or not feeling like they got the opportunity or the chance to do things outside of what was prescribed for them by their parents, the normal doctor, lawyer, engineer kind of thing, like, or feeling like, a level of even kind of resentment that they did go down that route. And some felt very fine that they went down that route. But it just felt like a really useful dialogue, a really helpful dialogue for people to kind of air out their grievances, but also like commiserate and like help each other through things, and talk about like the good part of growing up in an African home, an immigrant home. Yeah, it felt like a really warm conversation.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that, because we try to bring this relationship together regarding African immigrant parents and their children, for both sides to understand what the struggles that they are going through, and for parents to understand what the children are going through, for children to understand what the parents may be going through. And like you said, we make it diversify from different parts of Africa, from Central, East Africa, West Africa, the only thing we didn't get North and South, so, but, try to bring everybody together. So in your professional expertise and a host of resistance, so as a multi-hyphenated, award-winning creative storyteller, a writer from, Freetown, Sierra Leone, what motivates you to start podcast, and who are your focus audience, and what are your focus discussion? What do you focus on your?
I think what motivated me to start Resistance was, the protests that were happening in the summer of 2020, and that up until that point, I was just helping other people produce their podcasts, and I thought, maybe at some point I'll get to do a story or two, and maybe I'll have a podcast in a few years, but I didn't feel ready for it. I didn't feel like I was ready. But, the protest happened, and some of my colleagues that I was talking to was like, yeah, you should do this, man. Like, we really support you. You should try to make this happen. And I felt like I felt like I had something to say about, the killing of George Floyd, and the sort of mental toll that it was taking on a lot of Black youth, including myself. And how it just felt like, like an impossible task to even keep fighting this thing, this systemic oppression thing anymore. But I think I'm not one to ever really fully give up on something if I can find a way to figure it out. At least when it comes to Black people, I don't think I'll ever give up fully on us. Yeah. And so I think I wanted to create a podcast that will allow people to feel hopeful again, something that will allow people to feel like they can allow people to feel like there's actually things still happening, like there's actually something to still be gained from fighting back, rather than just sitting on your hands and saying this is just the way things are, So that's what really motivated me to make the podcast. And it's why, we put together, a lot of varying episodes that at the heart of it, it makes you feel like we can win.
Yes. And I really enjoyed so many of the stories that you share on the podcast.
Yeah. The stories that we tell, the people that we bring on, and it's narrative, it's documentary style. So you really feel like you're getting as close to what these people are experiencing as possible. So you can feel like, the same things that they feel. So that's what motivated me to do it in the past year and a half. And I think as far as what I'm interested in doing in the future, I think I'm still interested in doing that work. And I think lately I've been thinking, I've been looking inward more and looking at this question that we've been talking about is what is the role of the immigrant in this work? What is the role of Black immigrants in this kind of in the revolution, and in resistance, because we come here with so much, of our own baggage that we're just why would I put another bag on my back when I have so much already? But like I said, the struggles are interconnected, and I think we don't talk enough about how we could make those connections, and how we could see ourselves in this greater fight for liberation,
And it's so important. Like I was telling you, when I came to this country, I didn't give birth to my children, have family until over 10 years later. I wouldn't really fully understand what colonization has done to African continent. So when I came here and I took classes in Black studies,
Mm.
And those classes that I took, oh my God, I had a great professor at that time when I was in college, and the way she taught us even on how to do research about Black experience in America. That was my first, eye-opening. And then after college, then I branched out to talk to other warriors of the community, especially in New York. You will find many of them in Harlem who were talking about Black experience, what actually happened, what is going on. Because when you're in college, many of the history that you learn in college sometimes is watered down. But when you really want to hear the story, you go to those historians, people like Dr. Henry Clark, John Henry Clark, who actually got deeper into the issue of Black struggle and also African struggle on the continent, the colonization. And that was what opened my eye, because, back in Africa, they said the white man come there to open our eyes. Even through the religion, the Bible that, was being given to the Africans, that many of the value that they brought in, many of the sense of oppression that we never realized that they brought in on the continent. So I didn't understand any of those things until when I learned about Black history. In America, Black experience in America actually woke up my awareness and of what the colonization has done to the continent of Africa. Not only in the geographical location and what they've done to the continent in itself in dividing it, but also mentally of African enslavement, whereby you don't even see anything positive about your own history or your own culture or who you are as an individual. Everything geared towards the European values. Through education, through every other thing that we do. So people talk about, Africans, we speak French, we speak English, we speak German, we speak all these other languages that was imposed on us. So I really agree with you. We have to really understand what has done to us, to our ancestors, what has done to the people of African descent all over the world. We're talking about America. We have not even touching South America, in Brazil, many of Africans who were taken down there, and enslaved. So what would you, or who would you say play important role in molding your political view or on Black struggle in America?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was mostly artists. So I'm also an actor, and I think and it was a woman named Dr. Tanya Pettiford Waits. She's a director, she's a playwright, she's a teacher, she's a lot of different things, and she's one of my mentors. And she did a lot of work to help people, sort of decolonize their minds, right? Back in college, and I was doing some plays with her, and through that process, she was really able to like drill into me some very fundamental foundational things that I just like hadn't been able to see before, and some history that I wasn't really even privy to, that I wasn't taught in schools. That coupled with like the slam poetry scene that I was a part of in college as well was very social justice oriented. It was very woke, as you would say, and like people were just people always kept you on your toes about things like, checking your privilege and like reading different authors, just like really having a much more useful understanding of what the world is and how people move through the world. Those two things I think came together to kind of form the way I see the world was my time in the slam poetry scene and my time under the, direction and tutelage of Dr. T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. And a lot of time, imagine if many of us have those kind of mentor.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
most of us don't have that, don't have access to those kind of things. I mean, if it wasn't for that, I would be a totally different person. So
that's what it is. And I always encourage many of our African children, those who are in college, on college campus, don't just join African Student Association.
Mm-hmm.
Get into the Caribbean Student Association, get into Black Student Association, even go into white space, because no matter what, you have to understand how to navigate through this space. Because when you leave college, many of you are going to work. You're not just going to have only Black people working with you or African people working with you. You're going to have the first set of people working with you. And you have to understand how to navigate through all that.
Definitely, 100%.
I really want to thank you so much, because I could keep you here for hours. I really enjoyed talking to you. So how can a listener connect with you online or contact you, or can you tell us, our audience, how to subscribe to your podcast?
Yeah. So my podcast is called Resistance. It's just Resistance, and it's only on Spotify. So you can just search for it on.
So you only are on Spotify now.
Yeah, because it's very, I'm not happy about it, but it's on Spotify. It's only on Spotify because I work for Spotify, and Spotify funds it, so it's exclusive to Spotify for the time being. You can find it on there, Resistance. All our episodes are there. I think we only have like 24 episodes, but each one is amazing. I think you'll enjoy it. If you're looking for an episode that will really shake you and get you into the show, I think it's our second episode you can listen to. It's called Shake the Room. I think that episode's really kind of shows you what the show is about and the potential for what the show can do. And you can find me on Twitter at Saidu TTJ. That's SAIDUTTJ. You can follow me on Instagram at 2 last names, because I have 2 last names. It's TWO last names _ after that. You can follow and see what we're up to. Thank you so much for having me, Ms. Kemi.
So you say you're also I'm going to hold you responsible now that you're going to include some immigrant experience on your podcast.
I want to, yes. I want to have these kind of conversations on my podcast for sure, 100%.
Yes. I think, it will really do a lot of justice to so many people to actually hear from immigrants of color what their struggle is in this country, as well as also, and we be able to expose it also to African Americans and African immigrants also understanding the struggle of African Americans through the podcast of what you put together. So I really want to thank you so much for coming in and having conversation with me today. So Pansa continue to normalize conversation about importance of community engagement, about African immigrant experience, issue of race and identity within our community. As I always say, as we publicly discuss issues within our community, we're straightening away stigma associated with uncomfortable dialogue, because we have to have uncomfortable dialogue, whether we like it or not. So it becomes so healthy later on. So I really want to thank you, Saidu Tejan-Thomas, for your generosity, your vulnerability in sharing your experience as a child of immigrant who grew up in America. I will encourage our listener, please subscribe to Resistance. You're never going to regret it. It was going to hook you on like this, because I listen to it all the time. So I enjoy listening to your podcast, and I'm also a regular listener, a subscriber. So thank you so much for coming in today. I really want to thank you for that.
Thank you. That's really good.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Kemi. I really appreciated this conversation. I look forward to talking with you again.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Panza Panza Live podcast. We hope to have you back with us in the next episode as we continue to explore the nuances of the African immigrant experience. If you'd like to connect with us, you can email us at talk@pansapansa.org. That is talk@pansapansa.org. And follow us on Instagram at pansa.pansaforum. Until next time, remember to spread kindness and love. Thank you and take care of yourselves.